Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be digging into, well, a really interesting mix of ideas philosophy, practical advice, aphorisms, all focused on living intentionally.
Yeah, we've got stuff from Leo Tolstoy, G.K. Chesterton, but also more modern voices like Kevin Kelly and, some leadership insights too.
Exactly. And the goal here really is to try and piece together a sort of architecture, a blueprint maybe, for building a life that's more about purpose and effort and less about just, well, drifting along.
Right, escaping that passive default mode, which brings us straight to the first big hurdle, doesn't it? That feeling of inertia.
Oh, absolutely. That tendency we all have to just wait, waiting for the perfect time, waiting for someone else to start things off.
You've got the idea, maybe the goal is clear, but you find yourself thinking, oh, I'll start when I'm feeling more motivated, or the market's not quite right, or even just, well, they should reach out first.
Yeah, it's like we put ourselves in this holding pattern, waiting for some green light from the universe.
But Kevin Kelly, in these readings, he really flips that idea on its head. He points out something pretty fundamental about this waiting game.
What's his take?
Well, he basically says, everyone is shy. Other people are waiting for you to introduce yourself to them. They're waiting for you to send them an email.
They're waiting for you to ask them on a date. Go ahead.
Right. So it's not just you feeling hesitant.
Exactly. It's this mutual waiting paralysis. The opportunity isn't hidden. The real block is just summoning that courage to begin, as the source puts it.
So you taking that first step actually unlocks things for everyone involved, potentially.
Potentially, yeah. And this need for personal courage, it ripples outwards, doesn't it? There's that observation from Elmer Davis, too.
Ah, yeah.
Mhm.
This nation will remain the land of the free, only so as it is the home of the brave.
It connects personal initiative to a much bigger picture. Freedom, whether it's personal, social, or whatever, isn't just a given. It needs that act of bravery, that willingness to start, to risk, especially when waiting feels easier. Okay, so step one is courage. But what about the big enemy of courage, that anxiety, the worry that often stops us cold? How do we handle that?
Well, the sources offer a really practical, almost like first aid approach.
Yeah.
It's about using action as a kind of anesthetic.
An anesthetic, how so?
The advice is basically get completely occupied in doing something productive that occupies both your physical and mental capacities. If your mind's spinning out, fill it.
Right. Immerse yourself in a task, coding, building something, deep research, anything that demands your full attention.
Exactly. Because when you're fully absorbed like that, there's just no bandwidth left for the worry, for the rumination. It pushes it out.
Makes sense. It's like that saying, work is one of the best anesthetics for sick nerves.
It is. It might not solve the root cause instantly, but it stops the downward spiral of anxiety fueled by just sitting there, thinking. You shift from being passive to active.
Okay, so action helps manage anxiety. But then we get to Tolstoy, and he kind of complicates things, doesn't he? He makes us think harder about the effort itself versus the outcome we want.
He really does. And that story, the parable of the woman and the pearl, it's just so vivid.
Yeah, set the scene for us. It's quite a picture.
So this woman, she drops an incredibly valuable pearl into the sea, just gone into the vast ocean. And what does she do?
Something completely irrational, right?
Totally. She grabs a little spade, like a kid's beach spade, and starts scooping water out of the ocean, one cup at a time, dumping it on the shore, just relentlessly scooping.
Which is obviously futile, an impossible task.
Absolutely. And eventually this sea sprite appears, sees this, and basically asks her, what are you doing? When are you possibly going to stop this?
And her answer is key.
It is. She says something like, I'll stop when I've taken all the water from the sea and I found my pearl at the bottom. Just pure, unwavering commitment to this impossible effort.
Wow. And it's only then that the sea sprite helps her.
Right. Seeing that level of impossible determination, the sprite retrieves the pearl for her.
Okay, so the lesson isn't keep doing impossible things until magic happens. What's Tolstoy really getting at? Because she wasn't going to empty the sea.
No, exactly. The outer result, getting the pearl back, wasn't really in her control. Tolstoy's point, and it's huge for intentional living, is this. Outer consequences are not in our power to control. It is only possible to make an effort.
And inner consequences always follow from our effort.
Ah.
Okay.
So the real change, the guaranteed outcome, was internal. It was the transformation within the woman herself, her discipline, her commitment, her character. That's what solidified as she scooped.
So the effort changed her, and maybe the universe or fate or the sea sprite responds to the changed person, not the impossible task itself.
That's the idea. Moral perfection, like emptying the ocean, might be impossible. but striving towards it, making that relentless effort. That, Tolstoy suggests, is the fundamental law of human life. It redefines persistence. It's about the stride, not the finish line.
That's a powerful way to think about effort. But it raises a big question. If effort is the key, where do we actually point it? Where should we be scooping?
Crucial question. Because you could pour all that determination into something ultimately meaningless or even destructive. Which brings us to priorities.
Right. We see that quote about the grind. Let them waste time while you grind. Let them party while you sleep soundly. The difference will show.
Yeah, that sounds very hustle culture, very competitive. Keep working, keep pushing.
But connecting it back to Tolstoy and that inner consequence, maybe the most important part of that quote is actually sleep soundly.
Interesting. Why do you say that?
Well, it's not just about grinding more, is it? It's about making choices that let you sustain the effort. Intentional living isn't just about output. It's about managing your energy, your health, your rest, so the effort can actually be focused and effective.
Right. You need to build a system, build yourself to last. And that means aiming that incredible effort towards the right things, towards the right legacy, which is where Donald Miller comes in with a pretty stark statement.
Yeah, he cuts right through it. Love is the only legacy that matters.
That can sound maybe a bit simplistic
Yeah.
or like something easy to just nod along to. Everyone says family, love, relationships are their top priority.
But then there's the reality check. How does that stated value stack up against where the time and energy actually go? That's the gap, isn't it? The calendar gap.
It is. And the Daily Dad excerpts, they try to make this really concrete. They talk about the actual feeling, the visceral pleasure of, say, coming home to your kids.
That feeling when they fall asleep on you, or just hearing them yell your name excitedly when you walk in the door, things described as a pleasure that really nothing else matches.
Yeah, tops them all, as the source says.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that Bruce Springsteen line, too, blood on blood. That deep instinctual bond with the people you'd do anything for, your core people.
Okay, so if that feeling, that connection, is supposedly the peak experience, here's the tough question the sources pose, really, to all of us listening.
Oh, well.
We work late for promotion, right? We research investments, track metrics, set business goals. We scheme and sacrifice for professional gain. But do we actively sacrifice and scheme in the same way to get more of that pleasure, the
Bring it
family
up.
pleasure?
Yeah. Do we plan for it? Budget time for it?
Yeah.
Strategically say no to other things, specifically to make space for it.
Does your calendar, the actual hard evidence of where your effort goes, reflect that love is the top priority? It's a confronting audit for most of us, I think.
Absolutely. If there's a massive disconnect between family first
Yeah.
in your head and work dominates on your schedule, you're living a contradiction, and that wears you down.
It fatigues the self, as you say, which actually leads nicely into the next bit, the foundations. How do we even maintain the energy for all this effort and prioritizing?
Exactly. We need to talk about the physical side, the baseline requirement for showing up day after day.
Vince Lombardi puts it bluntly, doesn't he? Good physical conditioning is essential.
To any occupation.
Mhm.
And the reason? Fatigue makes cowards of us all.
Simple, but profound. If you're physically depleted, that courage we talked about earlier, the courage to start, the courage to say no, the determination to keep scooping.
It just evaporates.
Yeah.
Physical discipline isn't separate from mental or moral discipline. It enables it. You can't be brave on an empty tank.
And sometimes it's really basic things like that instruction. Practice perfect posture. Seems minor.
But it's not, really. How you hold yourself physically impacts your mental state, your energy levels, your focus. It all connects back to your ability to apply that consistent effort.
Okay, so physical foundation first. Then, what about actually getting good at the things we decide to put our effort into? The craft itself.
Right. This is where Stephen King's advice comes in, and it's not just for writers.
The read a lot, write a lot formula.
Exactly. Which basically translates to any skill. Immerse yourself in the best examples of what you want to do. Read a lot, and then practice doing it yourself relentlessly. Write a lot. Volume plus attention. That's the path.
And a key part of that attention has to be how we handle feedback, right? Simon Sinek has that great point about posture again, but mental posture this time.
Yeah, it's brilliant. He says, when we are closed to ideas, what we hear is criticism. When we are open to criticism, what we get is advice.
So the exact same words can land completely differently depending on whether you're defensive or receptive.
Totally. One feels like an attack, the other feels like a roadmap to getting better. Your internal stance dictates the outcome.
Which brings us towards the end here to some really nuanced ideas about restraint, presence, guided by G.K. Chesterton. He reminds us that just being good at something isn't the whole story.
No, it's definitely not. This is a crucial check on just celebrating skill or efficiency. Chesterton makes this point with that rather jarring
A
example.
grandmother one. Yeah, it sticks with you.
He says, basically, if someone shoots their grandmother from 500 yards, you'd have to call them a good shot. Technically brilliant.
But definitely not a good man.
Precisely. Skill does not equal virtue. You can master a craft, be incredibly disciplined in your work, and still be morally adrift. Intentional living demands we cultivate both competence and character.
They aren't the same thing, even if we sometimes conflate them. So how do we work on that character part? How do we stay present and grounded in what matters? Chesterton's idea about grace is pretty radical here.
It really is. He suggests saying grace not just before meals, but before, well, pretty much everything.
Yeah, his list is extensive. Grace before the concert and the opera. Grace before I open a book. Sketching, painting, swimming, fencing, boxing, walking, playing, dancing. Grace before I dip the pen in the ink.
It sounds almost paralyzing, like you'd never get anything done if you stopped for grace every single time.
Right. What's the practical point? Is it really about a prayer before boxing?
I think the practical goal isn't liturgical, necessarily. It's about breaking the autopilot. It's forcing a tiny pause, a moment of intention and maybe gratitude before you plunge into the next activity.
Ah, so it's about arriving fully, being present for the forcing match or the painting session, not just rushing into it while thinking about 10 other things.
Exactly. It's an exercise in presence, and that connects beautifully to William Osler's advice.
Which is?
Live neither in the past nor in the future, but let each day absorb all your interest, energy, and enthusiasm. Focus entirely on today.
Because the best preparation for tomorrow is to live today superbly well.
If you bring that grace, that full presence, that dedicated effort to today's work, today's relationships, today's rest, you've done the only thing you truly can. You've nailed today.
Okay, so pulling it all together, this architecture for an intentional life. It needs the courage for action, fighting inertia. It needs the discipline of priority, aiming your effort correctly. It needs the physical foundation to sustain it all.
Yeah.
And it needs presence, showing up fully.
And all of that underpins that core idea we got from Tolstoy. Persistence. Not just starting, but continuing.
Right, that definition, to progress steadfastly, firmly in some state, purpose, course of action, especially in spite of obstacle, opposition, resistance. Keep scooping.
Keep scooping. Knowing the outcome isn't guaranteed, but the effort, the act of scooping itself is transformative. You can't control the sea sprite.
But you control the scooping. You control the inner consequence.
And that internal strength, that self-governance built through persistence, it doesn't just stay inside you. It affects the world around you, being a good shot and a good person.
Which leads to that final challenging thought from Chesterton, connecting personal virtue to the bigger picture.
Yeah. We do not need to get good laws to restrain bad people. We need to get good people to restrain us from bad laws.
Wow. So building that inner architecture isn't just self-help, it's foundational for a good society.
That seems to be the implication.
Huh.
So the call to action is clear, really. Start scooping and live today superbly well.